Isn't it enough to just be a spiritual person? Tisa 5781. I like to look at the question of, is it enough to simply be a spiritual person, by looking at the incident of the egel, of the calf, of the golden calf. We should take note that when God is chastising the people for the building of the calf, he doesn't simply chastise them for building the calf. Listen to what he says. Saru mahir min haderech asher zavitim, asu lachem egel masecha. They have turned aside quickly from which I have commanded them, for they have made a molten calf. Why does he add that they've turned aside from his ways? God is emphasizing that what he's most upset about is not the building of the calf per se, but it's that they are not keeping his ways, his commandments. Now, some actually argue, some of the Mepharshim argue, that the building of the calf was an act of avodah zarah, of idolatry. However, I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's the case simply because when Aharon is making the calf, he declares, Hag Hashem machar. Tomorrow will be a holiday for Hashem, God, the God of Israel. They're going to use the calf to worship the God of Israel. That's not idolatry. It may be worshiping God, the God of Israel, in an inappropriate manner, but it's not idolatry. That's why God adds, they have turned aside. They're not keeping my mitzvot, my commandments. They're not worshiping me in the way which I've instructed them to do so. What God is saying here, what's more important than the people worshiping me, believing in me, is that they keep my commands. The Talmud Yerushalmi in Hagigah puts it this way. God says, better that they abandon me, but keep my mitzvot, my commands, because through my law, they'll come back to me. They'll find their way home to me. And we see this is demonstrated perfectly in last week's Haftorah. King Saul, Shaul, is commanded to kill the Amalekites, wipe them out, including their animals, but he doesn't. He spares their cattle and their sheep. And the Navi of a prophet, Shmuel or Samuel, asks Saul why he did this. Why didn't you carry out God's command and kill the animals as well, the Amalekite animals? Shaul says, I preserve them so we can give them as sacrifices to God, give them as presents to God. Shmuel says, no, you don't understand. God is not interested in your sacrifices, in your presence. He doesn't need you to feed him. It's not like he's hungry and he's saying, send me up a corned beef sandwich. That's not what God is interested in. He's interested in your observance of his laws. He wants you to keep his mitzvot. And a bit of hyperbole, Shmuel says that Shaul's disobedience is akin to sorcery, which is a form of avodah zarah, of idolatry. This is analogous to, let's say, parents who tell their child that they don't want the child to hang out with the hoodlum friends he's been hanging out with. They're a bad influence on him. Don't hang out with them. So what does the child do? When the parents go out, he invites the hoodlum friends over. Maybe they smoke something illegal, but they also happen to redecorate the house. They move the couch around and the TV around, and maybe the house even looks improved. Even if the parents are happy with the interior decorating job the hoodlum friends did, are they going to be happy that their son disobeyed them and had the hoodlum friends over? No, of course not. They're going to say, how dare you disobey us and have these people over when we said you shouldn't have them over. The point God is making here is, even if your faith wanes, the observance of the mitzvot eventually will bring you back to him. It's the actions that are more important, not the belief. The belief will eventually follow the actions again. The mitzvot are the glue which binds us to God. Problem is, after building the calf, the people didn't follow the mitzvot. If anything, we're told they arose in the morning and they brought sacrifices. So, okay, they built the calf, wasn't good. They're bringing sacrifices, and as I argued, they're worshiping the God of Israel here. But here's the problem now. Vayeshev ha'am la'achol v'shato v'yakumu litzachek. And the people sat to eat and to drink. And then they arose litzachek, which means to laugh or to play. You hear the word litzachek, yitzhak, to laugh. But that's not all it means, according to Chazal, our sages. It denotes an orgy. It denotes wildly inappropriate singing and dancing, like a scene right out of Animal House, like a Roman orgy. So God is saying, what good is it if you worship me, if you worship me in a manner which I tell you not to worship me? Look what you're doing here. You're having this wild party down there, and you're engaging in Gilui Ariot, which are forbidden sexual relations. You're engaged in forbidden sexual relations. What's going to stop you from now engaging in tinaf, adultery, which is the seventh commandment, one of the forbidden sexual relationships? And if you're willing to do that, once you settle in Eretz Yisrael and it hasn't rained for a while and you're getting nervous about it, what's going to stop you from worshiping Baal like your Canaanite neighbors do? You're going to say, the Canaanites have been living here a long time. They worship Baal, their storm god, and he's provided rain for them. Why shouldn't I give Baal a shot and engage in their sexual orgies, which were meant to beseech Baal to bring them rain? In the end, because you've forsaken my mitzvot, eventually you'll forsake me and engage in idolatry, and eventually you'll completely forget about me and become assimilated into that immoral Canaanite culture, which I've warned you about. Now, people often say to me, Rabbi, I'm not an observant person, but I'm a spiritual person. And when they say that to me, what they usually mean is they realize there's more to life than material pursuits. The problem is when you define yourself as spiritual and just leave it at that, it's very open-ended. Now, it can be very nice. It may mean that you really prioritize tzedakah and charitable type of works, but it could also imply that you seclude yourself from the world to contemplate the meaning of the universe while not really caring about anyone else. The Torah, the halacha say, no, we do care about others. On Purim, we give matanot le'evyonim, gifts to the poor so they can celebrate the holiday. On Pesach, we're obligated to ensure that even the poorest among us has access to the 4 cups of wine so they can celebrate the holiday with dignity. We perform the mitzvah of chachnaset orchim, welcoming in guests. The Torah's ethical monotheism provides us laws which create a compassionate social contract, a compassionate society. We believe that the key to creating such a society isn't necessarily based in belief. It's based in following the Torah's laws, keeping God's commands. Now, as we know, Christianity has a tension between belief and works. James championed works. Paul seems to have championed beliefs, even though scholars debate as to how much he was really championing beliefs at the expense of works, and we'll let scholars handle that. But in Judaism, there's no real tension. You want to have doubts, your belief is in question, that's fine, as long as you continue to perform the mitzvot. The performance of the mitzvot will bring you back to the derech, bring you back to the path. The word halacha, Jewish law, comes from the word holech, which means to walk. So the idea is that halacha is a path, or perhaps a boundary, that keeps us on the right path. It's no accident that the forms of Judaism which are most successful are the ones which emphasize the obligatory nature of the mitzvot. Once you view the mitzvot as obligatory, you keep performing them and they keep bringing you back home. Shabbat Shalom.